The battlefield was covered in smoke. Fires burned across the plains of Karnak's prime. The sky had turned red from all the explosions. Ships had fallen from the sky like broken stars. Bodies of alien soldiers lay scattered, mixed with broken weapons. In black sand, Jace, a young human medic, stepped carefully through the ruins. His boots crunched over glass and debris. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't trained to fight. His job was to heal, not to kill. His armor was light in his hands, carried only a medical kit. But still they had dropped him behind the front line. The call was urgent. A high-priority injured target needed help. That's all they told him. He thought it would be a general or maybe a royal guard. But what he found shook him. 2 alien guards grabbed him roughly and dragged him into a dark tent. Inside, torches flickered on the walls, casting shadows on a large bed in the center. On that bed lay a girl, barely moving, blood soaking the fabric beneath her. She had dark silver skin, glowing softly. Her hair was black with deep blue tips, and her face, even pale with blood loss, looked proud. Too proud to beg, too proud to cry. But her eyes opened the moment she saw him, a human, and she spat weakly. "Touch me and die, human." Jace blinked. He had seen many things in this war, but not this. She was no soldier. She was young, beautiful, fierce, and wearing the royal crest on her torn armor. "You're the king's daughter," he said quietly. She turned her head away, then "Shut up and let me work," he muttered. He knelt beside her and opened his bag. Her wound was deep, burned by plasma. Blood was pouring slowly from her side. She had already lost too much. She might not survive an hour. His hands moved fast, cleaning, injecting, sealing, and pressing. She gritted her teeth, but didn't scream, not once. As he worked, the guards outside whispered nervously, "Some paste." Others stared at him through the tent flap. He ignored them. His job was simple: keep her alive. She watched him with narrowed eyes. "Why do you care if I live?" She whispered. Jacek didn't look up. "Because I'm not a killer. Then you're a fool, maybe. But you're still breathing." She looked at him for a long time, then closed her eyes. When he finished sealing the wound, he checked. Her pulse? It was weak but steady. Her breathing had slowed. She had passed out. Finally, Jace stood up, wiped the blood from his hands, and looked at the guards. "She's stable. For now." The guards didn't speak. They didn't even blink. Instead, they dropped to one knee in front of him. Jace's heart skipped a beat. "What are you doing?" one of the guards said. "She lives because of you. Her bond has been touched. Her blood has accepted your hand." "I don't know what that means," Jace replied, stepping back. Another said, "You touched the forbidden. It did not reject you." The wind outside picked up. The tent flaps flew open, revealing a group of soldiers entering the camp. Royal colors, a black flag with silver claws. The royal standard of Karnak's prime. A tall figure walked in, wearing golden armor with burning red gems across the chest. His face was hard and scarred. But his eyes went straight to the girl on the bed. The king. He stood at the foot of the bed, his heavy boots shaking the floor beneath them. Said nothing for a long time. Then he turned to Jace. "You're the human who touched my daughter?" Jace nodded slowly, unsure what to say. "I saved her life." The king stepped closer. His voice was low but heavy. "If she dies, I will burn your world. If she lives, you will never leave her side." "I don't understand," Jace said. "She is not just a daughter," the king said. "She is a warrior, a flame, and you are." Now part of her fire? Jace looked down at her again. Her chest rose and fell, her lips barely moving. She whispered something. He leaned closer. "I didn't ask for your help," she murmured. But she didn't push his hand away, and for some reason that meant more than a thank you. The wind outside the palace howled like a beast, mourning its dead. The royal fortress of Karnak stood tall against the smoke of the battlefield, but inside its halls were heavy with silence. Jace walked through them with 2 guards on each side, their armor shining like molten stone. He didn't feel like a guest, felt like a prisoner. Alien nobles watched from high balconies, their eyes cold and unreadable. Every step he took echoed, every stare followed him. He'd saved their princess, yet none of them smiled, none of them bowed. To them, he was just a human, unworthy, dirty, lesser. And still, they moved aside when he passed. They feared something. Or someone. The guards stopped before two massive doors carved with ancient alien runes. They opened without a sound. Inside stood the king. His armor had not been cleaned. Blood still streaked the edges. He stood with both hands resting on the hilt of a large blade sunk into the stone floor. Beside him, strange machines hummed, reading battle reports, scanning energy waves, displaying rebel movements. But his eyes never left Jace. Jace stopped at the center of the chamber. "She lives," the king said, voice deep like distant thunder. "You did your duty. But do you know what you touched?" Jace kept his eyes level. "A wounded girl who needed help?" The king laughed, but there was no humor. "She is my daughter, yes. But she is also the fire that could destroy my throne. She defied me before she could even walk.
Ow.
Her spirit is wild. She burned every lesson I gave her. She refused her arranged bonding. She ran from her crown and gave speeches to the people, calling me a tyrant. The rebels loved her." He stepped closer, towering over Jace. "And yet when she fell, it was you, a human, who saved her. You placed your hand where no outsider has ever dared. You broke a rule older than your world." "I didn't break anything," Jace replied. "I just stopped the bleeding." The king studied him in silence. A moment later, another door opened behind the throne. The princess walked in. Her body was still weak. A shimmer of healing gel covered her side. A dark robe wrapped around her shoulders, and her long black blue hair hung loose down her back. She walked slowly, but her eyes were sharp, burning. "Is this your punishment?" she said, her voice steady, "dragging him before your council like a thief." "You should not be standing," the king replied. "I do what I choose," she answered. She turned to Jace. "Come with me." The king raised a hand, but she didn't stop. When Jace hesitated, one of the guards placed a hand on his chest. She asked, "You. That means you obey." Jace followed her out of the chamber, the door sealing behind them like the closing of a cage. They walked in silence through a long hallway lit by pale blue crystals. At the end, a private chamber opened into a garden filled with rare glowing plants and soft moss floors. She sat on the edge of a low stone bench, breathing hard. "Why did you follow me?" she asked suddenly. "You told me to," Jace said. "That's a bad reason." He sat beside her, but left space between them. "Look better. I feel worse," she muttered. A long pause followed. Then her voice softened. "I was supposed to die. That was the plan. Let them believe the king killed his own daughter. Give the rebellion a reason to rise stronger. But now I'm alive, and they will call me a traitor." Jace looked at her. Really looked. The anger in her face was real, but underneath it was pain. Deep pain. "You didn't ask me to save you. I get that. But you're still here. That means something." She didn't speak. Instead, she stood up and slowly pulled down the side of her robe, just enough to show the fresh seal near her ribs. A glowing mark, not human, not machine, pulsed faintly where his hands had pressed during the healing. "What is that?" he asked. "It's called the heart trace," she said. "It appears when our blood binds with someone who touches us at the edge of death. So, in what? Cursed?" She turned to him. "No, marked. The wind outside the garden shifted. Alarms began to hum in the distance. She froze. He stood. "What is it?" he asked. Her eyes were already narrowing. "They found me. The rebels." From the trees beyond the garden wall, a sharp blast fired red light tearing through the leaves. It missed Jace's head by inches. He tackled her to the ground and covered her body with his. Guards screamed. More blasts hit the palace walls. She looked up at him, her breath fast, and whispered, "I think your job just got harder. Human." He didn't smile. He just reached for her hand and said, "Stay down. Me handle it." Jace stood over her with his arms braced, ready for another shot, but none came. The laser had missed, but the warning was clear. The attack wasn't meant to kill her immediately. It was a message. Palace guards rushed in. Shields up, weapons drawn. One of them shouted into a cum crystal. Another covered the princess with a glowing field, but she didn't flinch or hide. She pulled herself from beneath Jace's arms and stood, her face hard and calm. "Stop surrounding me like I'm a child," she said coldly. "I need breath, not a prison." She turned to Jace and gave him a quick glance. "You with me?" They walked down a quiet passage behind the garden. The walls narrowed, leading to a locked chamber. Only she could open. The stone door read her pulse and slid aside, revealing a private room, hers. Inside was silence. Thick carpets. A bed untouched. Shelves of unread books. A single weapon hung on the wall. And near the corner, a mirror cracked through the Senta. She sat on the edge of the bed, breathing slowly. Jace looked around. Not what I expected from a royal. She pulled the top of her robe down slightly and pointed at the faint mark on her ribs. "This," she said, "is a problem." Jace stepped closer. "The heart trace." "Yes. It's a bond mark." "One." "That shouldn't exist. It means something ancient, sacred, but they don't know yet. If word spreads that the Princess of Karnix carries a mark from a human medic, my name is gone. My authority gone. So everything I tried to build with the rebellion will vanish." He sat across from her. "You said they tried to kill you?" She nodded. "They think I've betrayed them, that I've been captured and turned. They don't know the truth." "What is the truth?" She looked at him for a long moment. Then she stood and walked to the mirror. With one hand, she touched a panel behind it. A hidden drawer opened. Inside were thin data scrolls, cracked and dirty, each marked with strange symbols and dried blood. She picked up one and handed it to him. "This is from the rebellion's archives. It tells of a forgotten law, one that says if a royal ever shares blood with someone outside the circle, a bond may be created. A protector, a partner, a mate." Jace froze. "You're saying I'm saying the rules are broken now. You healed me when I was on the edge of death. You didn't do it for power. You didn't know who I was. And that made the bond pure, sacred, according to the old codes." He stared at the scroll. "This sounds more like a myth." "So does. The idea of a human saving a Karnix royal, and yet here you are." She returned to the bed, her voice dropping. "Before the attack, I wanted to escape the palace, go back to the people, prove I still stood with them. But now if they see me with this bond mark, they'll think I gave myself to the enemy, that I betrayed them for some soft human." "I didn't ask for this either," Jace said. "But it happened, so now what?" A long silence passed. Then she rolled her sleeve up. Her arm was scarred from shoulder to wrist. Long cuts, burns. Bruises that never healed right. Jace stared. She didn't hide them. "This is what the rebellion gave me," she said. "They said I was the face of freedom. But when I refused to lead their war, they made me an example. Beat me. Bound me. Used me in broadcasts. I was just their puppet." He felt his chest tighten. "Why didn't you leave them?" "Because the people need hope," she whispered. "Even if the fire burns you from the inside." He moved closer without thinking. He reached gently for her arm. She didn't pull away. He traced one of the scars near her elbow. "They did this to you." I nodded. "And now they want me dead because I survived." Suddenly, the room shook. A low boom rolled through the walls. The lights flickered. Jace jumped up. "What was that?" She stood too, her eyes narrowed. "They've breached the outer gate. They're not sending a message this time. Coming to finish me." Jace grabbed the weapon from the wall, a strange hybrid blade with a glowing edge. He held it awkwardly, familiar but ready. She pulled open a drawer beneath her bed and grabbed a wrist shield, strapping it on. "You know how to use that thing?" she asked, nodding at the blade. "No," he said. "But I know how to stand. In front of someone who deserves better?" She looked at him for a heartbeat, then smiled. Not a full smile, but the first crack in her walls. "Let's make them regret ever touching my blood." Smoke poured through the stone halls of the Karnix palace as the sound of boots and weapons echoed behind it. Blaster fire cracked the silence. The rebel forces had breached the inner wall. The place meant for peace was now a war zone. Jace gripped the alien blade tighter, its edge glowing brighter as it responded to his pulse. He didn't know why it reacted to him, or how to control it, but it moved with him like it had chosen him. The princess, now standing tall beside him, activated her wrist shield. A shimmer of blue covered her forearm. Her robe was torn and her breath sharp, but there was steel in her eyes. They ran through the royal corridor, past statues and scrolls, past rooms once used for council meetings and treaties. All empty now. Deserted, the guards had fallen back, and the rebels were swarming. "We can't fight them all," Jace said between breaths. "We won't," she answered. "We're going underground." She slammed her hand against a hidden panel in the wall. The floor beneath them clicked and opened, revealing a spiral stairway that led into darkness. Without waiting, she stepped in first. Jace followed her into the cold tunnel. The air shifted as the door above sealed shut behind them. The sounds of war faded into silence. The stairs ended at an old metallic hatch covered in moss and vines. She knelt and pressed her fingers against the seal. It hissed open. The space inside was older than the palace above. Stone and steel mixed in strange patterns. Broken tech and dusty relics lined the shelves. This was no ordinary shelter. It was a relic vault. And in the center stood a machine still glowing with faint life. "This place was forgotten by my father," she said quietly. "It belonged to my mother." Jace stepped closer to the machine. "What is it?" "It's called the Mirror Core. It scans bloodlines and memory traces. My mother used it to hide her secrets from the king." She turned to face him. "We don't have much time. If I die, I want to know why you matter to this planet. Why the blade responds to you. Why the bond mark chose you." Jace looked unsure. "What if it says nothing? Then we leave with only our fight. But if it says more, we leave with truth." She activated the core. Light swept over Jace's body. Symbols floated in the air. His blood was scanned. Energy moved through the machine like rivers of light. Then the results appeared. 2 names. One royal. One unknown. She stepped back, speechless. "What is it?" he asked. She reached for the floating words. "Your DNA," she said slowly, "carries fragments from the Guardian line. That line was supposed to be extinct. It served our throne before the Empire split. But the last Guardian vanished. During the Starfall War, his blood was thought lost forever." "I don't understand," Jay said. She looked at him. "You're not just human. You were raised human. But your body carries the mark of my mother's protector. Her people fled across the stars. Some mixed with humans. One of them became your ancestor." Jace felt the floor tilt beneath him. "Why would I end up back here?" he whispered. "Because you were called," she said. "The blade knew. The bond knew. And maybe I did too." Suddenly, the wall shook. An explosion above. Dust fell from the ceiling. "They found us," she said. Jace raised the blade. "Then let's make them regret it." She pressed a hidden switch, opening a narrow escape tunnel. But before they could run, the far wall burst open. A rebel commander stepped through. His armor was black, eyes glowing red from battle enhancements. Behind him, soldiers poured in. "You really thought we wouldn't find you," he growled. The princess stepped in front of Jace. "You swore to protect the people," she shouted. "Now you murder those who fight for peace." "Longer one of us," he replied. "You carry the enemy's scent." He raised his weapon. Jace didn't wait. He charged forward. The blade in his hand lit up like a burning comet. With one clean motion, it met the rebel's blade, and the force shook the walls. The princess joined him, shield flashing as she blocked another shot. Together, they moved like fire and wind. Jayak wasn't a soldier, but the blade guided him, turned his strikes into precision. It deflected blasts before he could think. And every time it touched metal, the air cracked with power. The rebels hesitated and broke. The few who remained dragged their wounded out through the broken wall. Silence. Returned, Jace stood there, breathing hard. The princess turned to him. You shouldn't have been able to do that. I know, he said. She stepped closer. You've changed. So have you, he answered. The room was in ruins, but something new had formed between them. Not fear, not duty, something stronger. She reached for his hand. Then let's stop hiding, together. They walked through the ruins in silence. Outside the broken vault, smoke curled up from shattered walls and scorched ceilings. The rebels had fled, but their message was clear. The princess was no longer their symbol. She was now their target. And the human walking beside her had become more than just a medic. Jace held the blade low. Its glow had faded, but it still pulsed faintly with his heartbeat. He couldn't explain why it responded to him. It felt familiar now, like it belonged in his hand. Like it had been waiting for him. The princess guided him through the back corridors of the palace, moving like someone who no longer cared for rules or eyes. She was silent, focused, her mind somewhere far beyond the ruined halls. They reached a quiet room hidden behind a waterfall wall. Inside was warmth, a fire pit in the center, old blankets stacked neatly. This wasn't a royal chamber. It was someone's memory. She sat down slowly and stared at the fire. This is where my mother used to sit, she said softly. She read me stories. Not about war, not about kings. Just small things. People with kind hands. Heroes who didn't want to be heroes. Jace didn't speak, sat across from her, watching her eyes reflect the flame. I haven't been here in years, she whispered. I used to think that being strong meant forgetting, but strength isn't silence. It's not armor. It's what you choose to carry when it hurts. She turned toward him. You carry something too, don't you? He looked down at his hands. I don't remember my parents, he said. I was found during a war. Abandoned. No record. No name. It's just Jace. I was raised on a medical vessel. I learned how to heal because the only thing I knew was pain. He reached into the pouch on his hip and pulled out something small. A medallion. Rusted and dull, marked with strange curved symbols. This was found with me. No one ever translated it, till I met you. She leaned closer and took the medallion. Her breath caught. This symbol, she said, belongs to the Guardian line, the one I told you about. They weren't just soldiers. They were chosen by the royal line through something older than law, through instinct, through blood. She flipped it over. And this, she whispered, this belonged to my mother's protector. Remember seeing it once around his neck. He vanished during the uprising. My father said he died, but I never believed him. She looked up at Jace. You are his blood. Jace leaned back, as if the truth had weight. I don't feel royal, he said. You're not. You're something rarer. You're a thread that connects broken history. She stood and stepped toward him. You didn't just save me. You brought something back that was thought extinct. He stared at the medallion. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with this. She reached up and placed it around his neck. You wear it? Until the day someone else needs saving. The fire crackled gently between them, but peace didn't. Last, a sound outside, not loud, not sharp, just movement. Jace stood, blade ready. The princess held her breath. From the shadows came a small figure, not a soldier, not a rebel, a child. Barefoot, dirty, holding a data crystal and shaking hands. He looked up at the princess with wide eyes. They're coming again, the boy said. All of them. They say you have turned, that you walk with death, they say. They will tear down the palace, stone by stone. The princess knelt and took the crystal. The boy collapsed into her arms, exhausted. She played the message. A rebel broadcast. Harsh voices. Burning flags. Soldiers marching. A new leader had taken control of the rebellion. One who wanted no peace. One who had declared the princess a traitor and the human a parasite. We have one night, she said. One night for what? Jace asked. to finish what was started, to show them the truth. Peace doesn't come from war. It comes from standing together. She turned to him. I can't do this alone. Jace stepped forward. Then you won't. She smiled faintly. Not from joy. From something stronger. Trust. She handed him the blade once more. Let's remind them who we are. The moon hung low over Karnak's prime, casting a pale silver light across the cracked marble of the royal plaza. Banners that once fluttered with pride were now torn and faded. Soldiers lined the edge of the steps, weapons drawn, armor scarred. Eyes locked on the gates. The air smelled like dust and fire. And behind those gates, an army waited. Jace stood beside the princess in the center of the plaza. He could feel her heart beat in the silence, steady and brave. She wore a deep blue robe, half torn from battle, but she stood tall. Her face was marked with healing cuts, and the bond seal still glowing faintly near her ribs. She didn't hide. It any more? They want war, she said without fear. But they will hear truth first. Jace gripped the blade tighter. His fingers still didn't understand how it moved with him so easily, how it felt alive when he held it. He had stopped questioning it. The blade had chosen him, just as she had. The gates began to open. First came the rebels, hundreds, some armored. Some bare. Their faces were full of rage and betrayal. Behind them, war machines crawled across the ground. Then came her father's soldiers from the other side, his royal guard. Their spears pointed not at the rebels, but at her, both sides, aimed to destroy her. A voice shouted from the rebel ranks, "Step away from the human. You still have a chance to earn forgiveness." Another from the king's side echoed, "Step away from the traitor, and you may live." The princess didn't move. She raised her voice so all could hear. "You speak of betrayal, yet I bled for your causes. You call me a traitor, yet it was your chains I broke." The crowd stirred. Some listened, others scowled. She pointed at Jace. "This is the man who healed me when your blades left me dying. This is the one who touched the ancient seal without fear, not a king, not a warrior. It's just a man who saw pain and answered it." Murmurs swept the lines. Even her father stepped forward, his eyes locked on the medallion around Jace's neck. "I see it now," the king said. "That symbol. It belonged to the guardian who vanished. How does a human wear it?" Jace spoke for the first time. "I was found during the Starfall War, left behind on a ruined world, raised far from your kingdoms. I never knew who I was, until your daughter gave me the truth." The king's voice hardened. "And what will you do with it?" Jace took a breath and lifted the blade high. "Protect her." Gasps rippled through the royal guard. The blade answered his call, glowing bright with blue light. The ancient symbol of the guardian pulsed on its hilt. The princess stepped closer to him, her voice soft but clear. "In our culture, when a guardian stands beside a royal and draws a sacred weapon, a bond is sealed. It cannot be undone by war or blood. It can only be broken by death." Jace looked at her, then let it be sealed. She turned to the soldiers. "You wanted a leader who would fight. I will fight, but not for one side. I fight for both. It's for peace between people who have forgotten what mercy looks like." One of the rebels shouted, "You speak sweet words while standing beside the enemy." She raised her arm and pulled back her robe, revealing every scar they gave her. "This is what your truth gave me. But I carry no anger now. I carry only a choice." She looked at Jace. "Do you trust me?" He didn't hesitate. "Yes." Then she did what no one expected. She dropped to one knee before him, in front of her father, her rebels, her guards. And in a clear, unwavering voice she said, "I accept him, not as servant, not as outsider, as my equal." The world went quiet. The king stepped back. A wind passed through the plaza. No one moved. Then one by one, soldiers on both sides lowered their weapons. Not all, but enough. The war didn't end with a battle. It ended with disbelief. It ended because neither side had prepared for a choice made without violence. The king turned without a word and walked away. The rebels scattered, unsure what to follow anymore. Only the princess and Jace remained in the middle. Surrounded by fallen banners and dropped blades, she stood and took his hand. "You didn't just save my life," she said. "You helped me take it back," and he squeezed her hand in return. "I would do it again." The palace was quiet for the first time in years. No drums of war, no shouting from the walls. It's only the sound of wind moving gently through broken halls and old flags. The fires had gone out. What remained was smoke, silence, and something unfamiliar. Peace. Jace stood at the edge of the royal gardens. The sun rose slowly behind him, casting long light across the stone paths. Green had started to return to the trees. The fountain that once ran dry now trickled with water again. This place had been built for beauty, but covered by war. Now it was breathing again. He watched a child chase a butterfly near the edge of the grass. Laughter. Real laughter. It echoed louder than any explosion he had heard during the rebellion. Behind him, the princess walked barefoot through the soft grass. Her robe was clean, her steps steady, her wounds mostly healed. Eyes had changed. They were no longer sharp with pain. They held a quiet strength. She wasn't just a survivor anymore. She was a ruler now. One who had chosen a different way. "You look uncomfortable," she said gently as she joined him. Jace smiled faintly. "Still not used to people bowing when I walk by." "You saved more than my life," she said. "You gave them something. They forgot. A reason to hope again." He nodded slowly. "And what happens now?" "We rebuild," she said. "But not with thrones and swords. We start with hands, with gardens, with schools. And yes, some of that will take years." He looked at her carefully. "And where do I fit into all this?" She turned toward him, then reached into the folds of her robe and pulled out something small. It was not a crown or medal. It was not gold or crystal. It was a tiny silver ring carved with ancient symbols. Not flashy, not royal. Worn smooth with age. "This belonged to my mother," she said. "She gave it to the guardian who vanished before I was born. The one whose blood runs through you." He took it gently. "It's more than a gift," she added. "It's a promise. That your place will never be behind me. Not beside me either, but with me. In whatever we build next." Jace looked at the ring. He thought of the battles he'd seen, the wounds he'd stitched, the blood on his hands. And yet here was this moment, quiet, whole. "I don't need a title," he said. "I'm not offering one," she replied. "I'm offering a life." He met her eyes. "Then I accept." They walked together through the garden as others began to enter. Citizens, soldiers without weapons, children, elders. Some looked nervous, others hopeful. The war was not erased. Its shadows would stay for a long time. But today was different. It was the first morning in years where no one was shouting. In the distance, a group of young guards trained in open space, not with blades but with shields and first aid kits. Jace watched with quiet pride. One of them, barely more than a boy, saluted him. "You've started something," she said beside him. "I just fixed a wound," he said. "You're the one who chose to heal the planet." She stepped closer and touched the bond mark on her. Sighed. It still glowed faintly under her skin. "This mark was supposed to be a curse," she said. "Sign that I gave myself to a stranger. But it became the one thing I was never allowed to have. A choice." He reached for her hand. "Chose me," he said. "No," she whispered. "I chose us." That night, under the same stars that had watched so much bloodshed, the palace lit candles across every wall, not to mourn, but to honor. The rebels who laid down their arms were welcomed inside. The royal guards who refused to obey blind orders were allowed to speak freely. The king never returned. His throne was left empty, not destroyed, just left as a memory in its place. A circle was built, a space with no one seated higher than the other. Jace stood quietly as the people cheered. Around him, he wasn't used to it, didn't ask for it. But when the princess stood beside him and placed the small ring into his palm again, he understood. The reward was not glory or gold. It was trust. It was a future. It was her. and as she whispered, "Stay with me," he answered without thinking, "Always."